Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's chant it again because we can. Just the third verse. Yayatra ratya jivoyam
Yayatvaratya jivoyam
dadhate brahmarupatam
dadhate brahmarupatam
sadhita sanakadyaihi
sadhita sanakadyaihi
sa bhaktirithyabhidhiyate
sa bhaktirithyabhidhiyate.
Very good. So here is the change that happens. The word bhakti is going to be replaced by priti or prema. Bhakti is love. It's just love directed at the infinite for the one who understands or the one who is desirous of understanding the infinite as oneself. That is what bhakti is. And that's what brings in, and when that bhakti overpowers one's life becomes more compassionate, more meaningful, and one is more present in what one does. Otherwise, it's just doing it for the sake of doing doesn't work. You know, like the man who was walking under the falling baby. If I catch it, he cannot say, I'm a karma yogi, jaded, faded karma yogi. If I catch it, okay. If I don't catch it, okay. It's not okay. You see? It's not okay. Yeah, that's why we say, we translate the word papa not as sin. There is no sin. The only sin is to translate the word papa as sin. We always translate it as omissions and commissions because these omissions cannot be forgotten. One thinks omissions means okay, I didn't do it, so that omission is a very important thing. And so here is the first verse. In verse number 3, the word bhakti is and priti or prema is used side by side, and here it is hard to find out because he uses the word ranj or pleasure and it becomes raktaha. Raktaha means the one who is completely in the, bathed in that, immersed in that. That is the one who is raktaha. Yaya raktya. Being immersed in which pleasure? And this pleasure is important because one is pleasure seeking. One is a seeker of pleasure and one is the avoider of pain. This is what one is in life. So you tell this person who doesn't know ABC of either bhakti, shraddha, vedanta, nothing. So you tell the person, this is what you really want, this is who you are, this is where you are going, and what you want is pleasure. You know what? That pleasure is what you are seeking, not the pleasure of the finite, which is not a pleasure at all, which is in fact a lot of pain because you don't get it. But the greatest pleasure is the pleasure of creating. Oh, that's right. Because that's why everybody wants creativity. Everybody wants to feel meaningful and create something in life. So one fancies one is a poet, one is not. But then in this fancy what happens? You just write a sentence. It is raining right now. This is just a sentence. But then you just put one word in one line. It is, and then next line, raining right now. And then you pass it off as modern poetry. Correct? So that is the level of, that is the level of one's understanding. One thinks this is poetry. One fancies oneself as a poet. Why? Because one is in love with not the poetry, but the concept of that creativity. That's why one is a painter, one is a singer, one is doing something. It's very important to contribute in life. Why? It's not that the contribution, somebody is waiting for your contribution. No. Most of the time nobody even notices it because the fellow has a blog. Yeah. Everyone has a blog. Everyone who wakes up in the morning has a blog these days. And so nobody reads those blogs because you don't have time to read your own blog. Why will you read another fellow's blog? But still it is important. Why all these blogs are there? And that's why they're all appropriately entitled WordPress, meaning you press the word out of all its energy to yield some creative thing, and then you call it a blog. Nobody reads it, but why does this fellow keep writing on it? It's that expression of creativity. And that creativity and that willingness to contribute, that is what makes life worth living. That's nothing but relating. Relating to what? You can say your own highest potential, if you are a Nastika, if you are an atheist, or you say relating to Bhagavan. Because where did this creativity come from? Even to write the so-called poetry, it came from somewhere. It didn't come from you because you did not manufacture it. That's why you say, I don't know what came over me. I just have these few words. Here they are. I just had this idea. Who gave you that idea? That is what is that connection. That is the link. So that creativity gives pleasure. Immersed in that pleasure of that creativity. And the highest form of creativity, here he has a very beautiful definition. What is the highest form of creativity? What would you think? Making something, saving a lot of lives. What is the highest form of contribution? What is the highest form of creativity? Saving lives, creating something that the humanity cannot do without? No, says Narahari. The highest form of creativity is to do what Bhagavan does. Oh, now I am listening. I can do what Bhagavan does? Yes. In fact, you are better at it. Really? Tell me how. What does Bhagavan do? Huh? What does the Lord do? What is the Lord famous for? Come on, don't look at me. Yeah. What does Bhagavan do? Bhagavan creates, this whole Jagat out of nothing, as it were. And of course the Bible people, evangelists, take it literally. The whole world came out of nothing. Nothing else we have to add. Correct? So from that nameless, formless consciousness, I'm hearing, are there two of me? I know I'm talking about Dvaita right now, but I'm hearing myself. So, from that nameless, formless consciousness, what is because me is Christ, that's what it is. So I have to ask myself. How do we? I think then both of them became participants. create. So we everything, Rudra. From the troubled waters. These all have some kind of a connection is there. Navagrahas. My prarabdha doesn't face one another, all different, facing the Adhisthana Devatas. So out of that one nameless, formless Bhagavan, the devotees is the most creative one, more creative than someone, coming up with slice bread. Because, simply because that creativity is the creativity of making many, many forms of to the infinite. In the infinite, it's all it's not just not the devotee creates. The devotee gives it a name. To all these very every different form. This is and in a very images and names and forms. The devotee is making somebody things of Teflon, projections. All the projections slide off like the buffalo standing in the rain. It seems unperturbed. All other animals are rushing to take shelter. It is chewing the cud right there. No, it is unaffected. So if you project upon the infinite, it is not going to be affected. And you remember that, correct? And so that projection is given back to you, but what it is Ishvarized. Ishvarized means it is divinized. How? Because that projection, which is a subjective projection, becomes an objective reality. and leads me to examine the psychological order rather than, just stew in my own pain, which is a master stroke. This is why bhakti is very important, without which no jnanam can come, without which no sanity can come. Bhakti is the line, is the bridge from insanity to sanity, really. Because insanity is subjectivity, correct? How do you call a person insane? Because they are seeing things which are not there, correct? Or imagining things that are not there. That is the person who is insane. And so everyone has garden variety mad, right? Because everyone has subjective projections about one's life. One feels targeted about what one wants. One is subjective. One thinks one is happy if one gets this, that, or the other, and even after getting this, that, or the other, one is unhappy. So that is all subjective. I am stewing in my subjective juices. Everyone else is stewing in their own subjective juices, and that is what is called my own pain. Correct? My own sorrow. And here you give a name and form to that pain, and you call it Bhagavan, and you create something where this pain can, you create your own therapist in any form that you like. And that's why the Hindu tradition is so invaluable. The person who has mother issues can see Bhagavan as the father of the universe, safe. Yeah. And the person who has father issues, oh Bhagavati, you are so beautiful today. Fantastic. No, I have both mother and father issues. Oh, come into my arms, baby Krishna. Yeah, I am the mother to you. I am the father to you. Everything. No, I am not into children. I'm not the children type. What do you want to do? I want to romance Bhagavan. Okay, you're the Meera type. Go romance Bhagavan. Serenade Bhagavan. No problem. Just say you are my consort. Without you, there is nothing. That's how even the person mad in the love of God is called devotee. And Pujya Swamiji always used to give this example. Very nice, beautiful example. He would say, supposing somebody had a girlfriend, girlfriend means in his mind she was the girlfriend, she was really not, she didn't even know of his existence. He just saw her in college and fell in love with her after seeing her 2-3 times. Her name was Meenakshi, let us say. So if he keeps saying Meenakshi, Meenakshi, Meenakshi all day long because he is demented in love, what will the people call him? Madman. But supposing that, that love is directed against goddess Meenakshi in Madurai, and then he says Meenakshi, 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 you become a devotee. Same Meenakshi. Same Meenakshi? No. Different Meenakshi, but really that spirit is the same. The dementia is the same. The pain is the same. It's not directed towards the finite. When the pain and the love and the subjectivity is directed towards the finite objects, it becomes a personal pain, thereby underscoring the alienation and the disconnection. When the pain is directed towards the infinite, it becomes an objective pain, a pandemic called samsara, wherein I can then seek some redress. Because then I say, okay, here I have a problem. I have a problem because I have issues with Bhagavan. This is the problem. Issues are always with oneself, really. But here Bhagavan becomes the convenient scapegoat, and Bhagavan signs up to be the scapegoat for all the issues. And because of that smiling, deflecting mode, then I have to deal with those issues that come up. I can't blame it on samsara. I can't blame it on the other person. So you see the force of this, you see the beauty of this, you see the wisdom in this. This is all a deliberate superimposition, because one leads one's life because of superimposition, one suffers because of superimposition. So this is the final altar of superimpositions, where my subjectivity has the power to be altered. That is what it is. Bhagavan is a superimposition, yes, it is my own psychological superimposition. To see Ganesha as the one who is Vigna karta, you are dropping hurdles in my way, as though Bhagavan has no other work. See, I wanted this, you didn't give this. Therefore you are, oh Ganapati, you are Vigna karta. But still, Vigna kartre namaha. Namaha to you, because what can I do? You are dropping hurdles in my way. I want this, but I am not getting this. Let's say it's because of you. This person has created Vigna karta. Why? Because cannot deal with the Vignas or take the responsibility for the Vignas in their own life. And then what? Then you say, maybe if I pray to you, you will remove the hurdles. So then in my mind, you have taken a leap. From baddie Ganapati, you have become goodie Ganapati. From Vigna karta, you have become what? Vigna harta. Harta means the one who takes away. So from bad boy Bhagavan, you have become good boy Bhagavan. Whose projection is this? Your own projection. Ashobhana adhyasa, your own pain is projected first, and the pain and the helplessness, and in the objective way of relating, which is the acceptance, and really it is love. That love for the self finds it in this in the infinite, which is the truth of one's own self. Since the infinite cannot be objectified, and since love needs, at least in the beginning, an object to express itself, Bhagavan is brought in as the object, as a superimposition, necessary superimposition in order to overcome. So is Bhagavan temporary? After the superimposition goes, let's say the person becomes a enlightened Vedantin, the bulb goes on and stays on, okay? The bulb that is in the shape of this head. And then what happens? Bye-bye Bhagavan? Huh? No, bye-bye Bhagavan, because that Bhagavan is that which cannot, the only thing you cannot say bye-bye to is Bhagavan. And when that is understood, it is all love without needing to express itself. When it expresses itself, it comes out as compassionate acts, accommodation, etc. Like an ocean, it can be turbulent and roaring, or it can be calm. But still, nonetheless, it is apuryamana, it is full. And that fullness which I seek, I superimpose the fullness first on Bhagavan, then I create a container that can contain my own fullness, because I cannot contain it. I don't have access to it. Then I worship the Kalasha, this container, and then what? Then I bathe with this container. That is why bhakti is important, and it's not just important, it's a euphemism. That's why bhakti, without bhakti, there is really nothing. There is no sanity, and there is certainly no knowledge. And so here is his own definition of bhakti, which again, Narahari likes to, Narahari brings everything with a twist. So here is bhakti with a twist. What is the twist? Bhakti, he says, is the ability to immerse pleasurably in some activity where you don't even know that you exist. Because as long as you know you exist, there is only pain and sorrow. When I forget myself in my creativity, then there is happiness, and that is a pleasurable activity. And here, Bhagavan is creating the universe. As we speak, new things are happening. Old things are being withdrawn. Bhagavan is creating, and you are also creating. Bhagavan is creating the universe. You are creating Bhagavan, so to speak. That's why the word sadh, to accomplish, is used. Sadhita has been accomplished. So this creativity has been accomplished. Sadh means to accomplish. Sadhu, an accomplished person. And what is the sadhu accomplished at? Accomplished at living for others. That is the outcome of bhakti, where you stop living for yourself, because everything becomes, the you expands, because you go under the umbrella of Bhagavan. When you go under the umbrella of limitlessness, you can also say, I am limitless. All that is going to be talked about. So the first definition of bhakti comes with a bang. He says, yaya bhaktya raktya. Raktya means being pleasurably immersed in which. What happens being pleasurably immersed in which? Yaya raktya jivaha, this faded, jaded jiva. Ayam, this one, right here, the one we have been talking about all morning. Here, dadhati, gives, does, gives, creates, brahma rupatam. Brahma, this Brahman, which is oneself, free of name and form, this jiva, he, because the jiva is masculine here, he creates Brahman into Bhagavan. Because of his own pain and helplessness, invokes Bhagavan. And this creation was already accomplished. So if in case you have a doubt and say, how am I going to do this? How? Oh my God, I don't know how to do this. Just look at all the sages in the world, starting with Sanakadhyaihi. The foremost sages, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanat Kumara, Sanat Sujata. Somewhere I have heard these. Where are they? Huh? In UG. Oh, they have come to UG? Yes, they are those that sit at the feet of Lord Dakshinamurti. That is what Sanakadi, etc. These Munayah, these Munis, these sages have accomplished this. Because they created Dakshinamurti. Oh, they created Dakshinamurti? No, their desire for learning made this form come. See, now you can see how in the stories of the Purana, Bhagavan became Pratyaksha, as though he was Paroksha to begin with. Yeah, Pratyaksha means came right in front. And then that somehow becomes like a spiritual romanticism where the person becomes very resistant to Vedanta because I'm a bhakta. I'm waiting for Bhagavan to come. So Bhagavan comes means what? Has to become a reality for you. That's what it is. The Pratyaksha means standing right here as though really speaking standing. And when does that happen? When you are so convinced that you are relating to Bhagavan from that standpoint when that becomes a reality. That is what called sadhita, accomplished. Otherwise one is always longing for things and that longing is superimposed to Bhagavan, of my own favorite Bhagavan, with a particular kind of a thing. Now that's why Ganesha becomes everyone's projection. Now we have computer Ganesha doing computer because people want to learn, what is that? All that Oracle and all these. They hope for an Oracle to learn all these computer languages. So they have Ganapati at the computer. Then they want to learn music. They are tone deaf. What do? You have Ganapati with a tanpura or a sitar or a guitar. Then you have all these things. So that's what it is. That is the superimposition. And this superimposition is accomplished when that Bhagavan becomes real for me. That's what is called Sakshat Karanam. Making Bhagavan into someone who is real, not just a exercise, pranaya swaha, apana swaha, vyana swaha, udana swaha. And in between I'm checking to see, okay, somebody came, okay, where was I? Vyana swaha. No. So you don't treat Bhagavan with the carelessness that you lead your own life. No. And if everything is Bhagavan, whatever I do becomes worship. That is Karma Yoga. I have to do everything worshipfully, not like mindlessly. Because I'm having some kind of an attack of hopelessness. And then the keyword, the buzzword I hear these days is, I don't have confidence. Everyone comes and tells me confidently. And all this is gone. In the face of making this a reality, all that is gone. Yeah, there is no confidence motion that you keep passing against yourself. This is only this. No confidence motion is only for Parliament. There, you can that sarkar, the government just falls. Here, you don't come under the grip of no confidence. No confidence means what? It's an imposter. Make it go away by coloring it, rakta, colored, coloring it with bhakti, and let the mindfulness of the action override the underconfidence, override the hopelessness, override the fears, override the tears. This is a foolproof way of going from insanity of subjective perceptions to sanity, where I make that no confidence into a psychological order and see that and deal with that, rather than making it a personal, personal issue. This is very beautiful, and this is where the growth lies, and this is how the growth comes. And then therefore he says yaya raktya, through being immersed in what pleasurable activity, ayam jivaha, this jiva, what? Dadhati, gives. And, gives what? Brahma rupatam. Gives rupatam to Brahman. Makes that formless, nameless one into something that I can relate. A beautiful Bhagavan that is personal just for me. That is what the whole thing is, And in this country, Bhagavan they don't have, so they make other things like, a little girl had some unfortunate accident, and the leg, half the leg, above the knee had to be amputated. And she was very sad what to do. Of course, she was learning how to, walk with that prosthetic legs, and she was feeling very hopeless. Then her aunt or uncle got her a doll, I suppose from some other country. In this country, I don't think you can find that. Also, who had it was an amputated doll with an amputated leg, and it had its own prosthetic leg. And seeing that and relating to that doll, the girl who was not making much progress in physical therapy and learning and was resistant to walk on this prosthetic leg, immediately improved, and in 1 week started to walk. That is what we say Bhagavan. Here they say doll, we say Bhagavan. Bhagavan is just a dolled up version of this. Here they don't have any, because all this, they don't understand formless, nameless, they don't understand how to relate. You can't relate to the formless, you can't relate to the nameless. How are you going to call out, oh, whoever you are, that itself is a name. Oh, you, what's your name? That's a name. And then when you say you, it's a name and a form. So you need a name and a form, and just like Bhagavan is creating this whole universe, populating this whole universe with the nameless, formless Bhagavan is populating this whole universe, making saguna from nirguna. You are doing the same thing. Oh Jiva. The nice thing is, you're not called mad for doing that. You're called a bhakta. From from that nirguna Bhagavan, you are making saguna. You are making Bhagavan as karta, bhokta, creator, this, that, everything. Bhagavan with prosthetic leg. And in fact, you don't have to go far. Shani is that. Shani is Bhagavan with prosthetic leg, because he has only one leg. He limps. We already have that. I already talked about deaf Bhagavan, For the deaf devotee, or the devotee who wonders if Bhagavan is deaf. Wonderful, very powerful. Please see the truth of this. And so when I make the infinite into colorful names and forms, I am not mad, because the infinite happens to be manifest in various names and forms, and I am making further names and forms, so that I can relate to the infinite on my own subjective terms, thereby making it an objective fact. It's a trick. It's a beautiful trick. And this was accomplished by Sanaka and his band of sages, in whose response to whose prayer Lord Dakshinamurti appeared. Yeah, for them he appeared, for me he's not appearing, there is appearance is connected to what you see. Remember, it's a journey of subjectivity. Yeah, and so you infuse that, the extent to which you infuse your own connection and that reality, your own Shraddha belief, to that extent Bhagavan is going to be real for you. That's why in all the puja we are very careful. Okay, what comes after this, what comes after that? You can't just sort of say, first I'll do Arati because that's nice, and then after that I'll save Abhisheka. No, there is a method. No, but this method is so arbitrary. Well, it is there for a reason. It's tried, tested, sadhita sanakadhyaihi. It is tried and tested. You follow this method. There is a method to invoking this Bhagavan, and you follow this method, and that's why it's called worship. And worship for us is not just what happens in the temple, church, mosque. Worship is that which is life itself. Life itself is led worshipfully. Not just like, oh, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it's happened. Why? Because I don't feel like it today. What do you mean you don't feel like it? There's no option. No, I'm feeling hopeless. The antidote to hopelessness is worship. Doing things worshipfully takes away that jadedness and that fadedness of the routinization called life. Sadhita sanakadhyaihi. This was already, we have been shown the way by Narada and Sanaka, etc. We have been shown the way. No need to this thing. And abhidhiyate is called iti, bhakti iti abhidhiyate. This is what is called bhakti. The translation is beautiful here. Except for one part, an individual fervently embraces his perception of Brahman, correct? Not with love, but because of which love? Because of the pursuit of which love? The love of what? Really, the love of the self, the love of love, etc. The one that embraces or creates one's own perception of Brahman, gives that nameless, formless Brahman his own names and forms, her own names and forms, in order to be able to relate. Even as Brahman is creating, all the whole Jagat. Same thing Brahman is doing. And that is the ultimate creativity. Because I am doing what Ishvara is doing. Ishvara is making one out of the many. I am also making many out of that one. That gives satisfaction because I have found something to relate to. And that's where the subjective automatically becomes objective. Okay? Yeah. Sadhita sanakadhyaihi sa bhaktihi iti abhidhiyate. This is what is called bhakti. Then comes the question, what is it going to do for me? What have we been deaf this whole time? Didn't we talk about what it's going to do? Yeah, but that was just general. Specifically, what is it going to do for me? Let us chant the next verse. Sarva sadhana sampattihi asti bhaktistu nasti chet tarhi sadhana sampatah tushkandanavad vritha. Vritha. Yeah, so there is a syllable missing. I even looked at 2-3 different, even the Divakara's commentary I looked at, there is a syllable missing. There should be 8-8, but there is 8-7 for some reason. Maybe a lazy brahmachari did not copy it down or something when the copies were made. Maybe we just needed something. Tarhi sadhana sampatah. No, this is for myself. Yeah. Tarhi sadhana sampatah 8. Tushkandanavad vritha. Maybe there should have been tad vritha. Tushkandanavad. No, then it won't this thing the meter. There should have been one syllable. Somehow it has gone. I can't believe that Narahari forgot. That is not the explanation, because you see so careful he is, but somehow it's missing. Okay? Oh, yes. There is a reason. What?
It says Tushakanda.
Tushakandanavat vritha.
Then it is.
Oh, then it is, yeah. Oh, okay. Tushakandanavat. Then it is complete, yeah. Yeah, I was not pronouncing it correctly. Tarhi sadhana sampatah.
Tarhi sadhana sampatah.
Tushakandanavat vritha.
Tushakandanavat vritha.
Yeah, now it is all perfect. Yes. Why did I think something is missing? Because that's what the verse is all about. One thing being missing. Yeah. It always works out. Yeah. So, sarva sadhana sampattihi. Sadhana here what? Sadhana chatushtaya. And samadhi shatka sampattihi. So beautiful. So sadhana chatushtaya, that fourfold qualification which unfold the 6 inside, correct? Which is called sadhana shatka sampattihi. So that sadhana of the 4 and sampattihi from the 6th he has combined to show all 9 of them. Sarva sadhana sampattihi. So here is the die-hard Vedantin getting ready for the knowledge. And the person has a checklist that they have put on their fridge. And what does the fridge checklist read? Shama check. I have Shama. Shama means what? The ability to not react. You feel like reacting, but you don't react because it is inappropriate. It harms another one. It's targeted and another one. It's my own frustration being projected out. So I don't react. That is what is called Shama. After not reacting, what happens? Kaboom! It explodes like a cooker without the safety valve, and that is what is completely wrong, and therefore I have to make sure that it is diffused, like a landmine of the mind. The landmine of Ragadveshas are detonated safely out of bounds in a lab called the mind, and so therefore it has to be safely detonated, and therefore I don't hurt anyone with my organs of actions or even the speech or the mind. So therefore that is called Dhamma, because what's in the mind comes out. So therefore that has to be disciplined and exercised. Shama Dhamma go together. First I stop myself from Dhamma, and then I have to do Shama, resolve the pain inside. Shama check, Dhamma check. Because that day I felt like getting angry at 2 people. I didn't. This is the die-hard Vedantin telling himself, herself. And then what? Uparati, let go. Yes, I have let go of everything except this list. Check. Letting go of the small stuff. Don't make the small stuff into big stuff. Let go. Check. I have let go. I have let go of this, let go of that, let go of everything. Yes, check. And then what? Titiksha, I want now. Titiksha means patience, forbearance, the ability to put up with difficulty for the sake of the knowledge. Oh, that means if I sit next to someone I don't like in the class, I have to be patient and not pinch them. Correct? Resist the urge to nicely pinch them. Or just go like that. Get away from me, I need space. So that is Titiksha. No, not just in class, even out of class, because everything that you do is for the sake of knowledge. Correct? Eating, drinking also, yes. Eating, drinking is for the sake of knowledge. I thought I lived to eat. No, you live for knowledge. You eat once in a while. So that everything I do is for the sake of knowledge. And so I have the ability, I become a person who is very serene because I have the ability to put up with a lot of things without getting disturbed and afflicted, because each time there is a disturbance, what happens? I get further away from the being qualified for the knowledge. So I grow bigger than the forces that disturb me. I outgrow the cause of the disturbance. Isn't that beautiful? That's titiksha. Do I have it? Say yes, check. Yeah, check. Check, check, check. Okay, then what? Shraddha. Oh, I'm the best at Shraddha. I have so much Shraddha, it's oozing out. It's unstoppable. Somebody made a film, The Big Ooze. Yeah, this is Shraddha. Some kind of a goo that takes over the whole town. Yeah, so this is Shraddha. It is like this green goo that is just wonderful. Everything, it's all Shraddha. Guru check, Bhagavan check, everything check, check, check. I have Shraddha. Shraddha means trust. Trust that Bhagavan is going to give me things that I need. Trust. Trust that if I have Guru, knowledge will come. Check. And trust that the Shastra has only the best things that it wants for me. Check. That the words of the Guru ring true. Check. Yes, I have Shraddha. That took a long time, but I have it. Check. And then what? Samadhanam, single-minded focus. What was that? I just got distracted. What was that? Single-minded focus. Yeah. I have that. Check. Check, check, check. Because I'm being focused on knowledge. Whenever you ask, what are you doing? I'm saying I'm focused on knowledge. I want knowledge. That's what I ultimately want. I know. Check, 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 check. And then what? Viveka. Viveka means, do I know what I want? Of course. Check. What do you want? Nitya, check. Anitya, bye-bye. I want that which is there forever. I want that. Vairagya do you have? Of course. What are you talking about? You're talking to a die-hard Vedantin. Not Vedanta out, Vedanta in Vedanta. See? Check. Vairagya means the ability to let go dispassionately of wanting finite things in the here or in the hereafter. That seeking is gone because the objects of that seeking, the objects of those pursuits I have known to be finite, so I give up the finite for the sake of the infinite. Because unless the finite is given up, the infinite does not come. The infinite is a very shy and jealous being. Yeah. As long as the finite, I am surrounded by, the infinite is hiding behind the mask of the finite. When the finite is unmasked, then I know my love is not for the finite but for the infinite, which is myself. Vairagya, check. And then what? Mumukshutvam, flicker, but check, small check. Yeah, muksha, desire for freedom, which has to translate to what? Jignasa, desire for knowledge. So if desire for knowledge is wavery, like jello, it just keeps wobbling, and then that means the desire for freedom is not understood. And the connection between the two are not understood. But here I am understanding them. Check, check, check. And then what? I am waiting. What are you waiting for? For Vedanta to drop in my life. But things are very evident in the class. In fact, they are luminous, self-luminous. And then as soon as I wear the chappals outside, then the class departs along with my departure. Everything is bright in the class. And then I go back to my gloomy life. Class after class after class after class after class. I need a class action suit against Vedanta. It doesn't work. Before you come to that conclusion, so mumukshutvam, check. Viveka, vairagya, mumukshutvam, shamadhi, shatka, sampatti, those 6-pack, check, 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 check. Everywhere there is a check sign. But still, it does not alter my checkered life. What to do? You know, bhakti is not there. Checkmate. This is what it is. Ultimate checkmate. Yes. In this game of chess, right? You know, this is what it is. This is the ultimate checkmate because only one thing is missing. You know, it's like that joke Pujya Swamiji used to always say. Namma Ata Maapile. You know, our son-in-law. Because the daughter went and married the village simpleton. Uneducated, uneducatable, unemployed, unemployable. You know, and the daughter fell in love and married this fellow. Now, this very rich and cultured family was forced to kind of find something good in the new son-in-law because they have to accept it's their daughter's wish and she has chosen her life partner. So, you know, they gave him some little, job in the business, lick the envelopes. Yeah, you know, because that's all he was capable of doing. And they kept him on, you know. And then what? When the relatives came, what does your son-in-law do? It's not nice to say he's the envelope licker in the factory, in our company. So you have to find something good about him. And so they would rationalize by saying, our son-in-law is wonderful. Only two things are missing because the mother is in pain, you know, like, look at all this educated girl and wonderful girl has gone and, you know, no wavelength. What does she see in him? You know, she's chafing and she needs some outlet. So first she says, he is wonderful. And then what? Only two things are missing. Only two things, that's okay, no problem. Such a lovely fellow, lovely young man, only two things are missing. We can compromise with the two missing things. What are they? First thing is he doesn't know what to do on his own. That's a very big thing. What's the other thing? Even if you tell him, he doesn't listen. Only two things are missing. So like that, all the things check. Bhakti checkered. Yeah. That's what gives you a chakkar, you know. Means the head goes round and round. Vedanta, if it's not working for you, if there is no magic in your life, you know, resurrect the bhakti, do some CPR. Just say, clear. And then it will become very clear. You revive the bhakti, which is lying sedated, you know, stretched out on the table of your consciousness, of your awareness. Revive the bhakti with the paddle of the Mahamantra. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They are electric currents. And this dead bhakti goes, what? And then Vedanta comes. That's what you have to do. But first time I went and did, you know, like that. It didn't work. Why? Because there was not enough current. Bhakti has to be current, here and now. And it has to be meaningful. So you have to go like this again and then go. Because the first time you went like that. One finger namaskara. This is not a namaskara. This is not even a dance mudra. I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is. It's a made up thing for half-hearted bhakti. Just like when the patient has gone into cardiac arrest. This is Vedanta, you know, not understanding Vedanta is as good as cardiac arrest. Brain death, really, that's what it is. Nothing is happening, you know, nothing is functioning and the person is going through life just like T.S. Eliot described very beautifully in one of his poems. Let us go then, you and I. While the evening is spread against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. This is what is called the love song, should be called the bhakti song or the no bhakti song of who? Alfred J. Prufrock. A fictitious individual. He was just this is the difference between an ordinary person and a poet. An ordinary person goes through the same road and doesn't see anything. Eliot was just walking and he saw this sign Proof Rock Furniture Makers, and he got that proof rock from that. So the evening is spread against the sky like a dead person. Etherized means anesthetized. And again, his own anesthesia and his own anesthetic life of this proof rock, which is superimposed upon the proof rock, and proof rock is further in the poem superimposing it upon the evening sky. Because even in the beautiful evening sky, yesterday there was a beautiful rainbow in the evening sky, wonderful twilight rainbow, and the person doesn't see that. The person is unable to appreciate that because there is no self-love, and there is no self-love, and therefore that love you cannot love an object unless you love the subject. Vedanta is gaining PhD in the love of the subject. And here, Bhagavan and Bhakti is where the subject is temporarily objectified in order to seek that understanding and that love. And so otherwise the person goes anesthetized. Most of the life is anesthetized. You don't even know whether you've eaten or not. You don't even know whether you're going upstairs or downstairs because the person is on the landing permanently. Oh, was I going upstairs? Was I going downstairs? And then you say, what am I doing in this room? I don't know. And then somebody says, go back to the other room. Maybe you'll remember if you go back. And then you go there, why did I come here now? All this. This is all just the angst of the everyday is so painful to bear that one puts a veneer of what? Traps it in a veneer of rationalization and disconnection. So disconnection in the beginning feels like a safe place, but then it's the most disgusting thing really. That alienation is unbearable. This is so painful. And so therefore, here all the things are there. This Vedantin is just doggedly pursuing every Upanishad. Wherever there are talks, going and sitting. Yeah. And then what? Gives up on Vedanta. Nothing is happening. Then that's where the paddles of Om Namah Shivaya, the Maha Mantra, has to be revived. Clear? Is it clear? No, but it will be soon. And then applied to this dead bhakti within the heart. Bhakti is equal to what? What did I just say? Love. Yeah, that love is dead. And that love has to be revived. And unless that love is revived and directed at the infinite, bye-bye Vedanta, bye-bye Upanishad, bye-bye Jnanam, bye-bye Nishtha. Nishtha means the ability to abide in Jnanam. So this is addressed to the die-hard and aloof Vedantin, head in the clouds. I am beyond bhakti. I am, what is that? Post-bhakti. Yes, there is a term post-colonial. I have always been very critical of that. Because that assumes that everything colonial is gone and we are no longer under the spell of that. And so, post-bhakti, I'm trans-bhakti. Don't you know I'm a Vedantin? I don't do bhakti. I have transcended bhakti. That's for the riffraff. Bhaktas are riffraff. Riffraff means just, people on the street who can't understand the paradoxes. All the paradoxes. Tade jati tanne jati tadhure tadvantike. That moves, that doesn't move, that is within, that is without. That is within, that is everywhere, that is unmanifest, that is manifest. I deal in that. That's where the charge is, that's where the spark lies. What is this bhakti? I want mukti. Hello, without bhakti there is no mukti. Only kti is there, that's all. Yeah, that's all it is. One participle you are left with. There is nothing there. Why? Because there is no love. But when the love is dead, Vedanta doesn't work. revive the love, and then look at the Vedanta in a new light, then it will speak to you not in tongues. It will speak to you in a tongue that you can understand, imbibe and relish. So this is one scenario. And the other scenario I come across is that I'm Vedanta'd out. I've been studying, I don't see much in it. I have gone away from it. Why? Because what is there? Yeah, I know, Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, that is this, that is whole, this is whole. Yeah, Ishavasyamitam Sarvam. Yeah. Everything is pervaded by Ishvara, big deal. Everything is Bhagavan, okay. You are the whole, this is that jadedness. And the person comes to the wrong conclusion. Vedanta does not work. Yeah, it's not that Vedanta is not working. Love is dead. Self-love is dead. That love which expands into the whole universe and has the power of sustaining the universe, because out of the love itself, this whole universe was created, we hear. Bhagavan, out of his own compassion, created the whole universe. And so out of love, this universe is sustained. Out of love, the misery is put an end to and the universe is taken back. And that love, if I cannot find in my heart, for myself, for a fellow being, for nature, for other animals, plants, flora, fauna, for everything around me, what is the use of Vedanta? Better not come to class, if that is the case. So until the bhakti is put in ICU and CPR, and until it is revived, there is no Vedanta. That is the purport of this verse. Let us see it line by line, word by word. Sarva means all, feminine, goes with sampattihi. Sarva sampattihi, sadhana is part of the compound. Sarva sadhana sampattihi asti. Asti means check, it is there. Yes, I have said to all of them, yes. But, if. Chet means but if. Nasti bhakti tu, but if indeed bhakti is missing from this list that you have just checked. But bhakti was not part of the list. Ayyo murkha. These certain things you don't have to list because it is you. Yeah. And if bhakti is not there in this, in everything, all the qualifications that you have checked, tarhi, then sadhana sampataha, this gaining, all this effort that you have made to control your limbs or organs of actions, to manage your emotions and anger, starting with anger and desire, and to develop trust, and to what else, and to let go of the small stuff, and to have single-minded focus, and to know what you really want, and to let go of what you don't want. All these qualifications that you have painstakingly developed is what Adi Shankara calls Pishtasya Peshanam or Tushakandanavat Vritha. Tusha means husk. Husk is that which is separated from the grain through a method called threshing. Threshing means you beat the grain along with the stalk on a rock, and then on a little cliff or a little mountain or something like that, and on the side the grain falls and the husk is left in your hand. Correct? And somebody goes and collects the grain while it is being it's called threshing. Actually it should be called thrashing. So you thrash the grain on the rock through this threshing to separate the grain from the chaff. Correct? Then that stalk with all the grain fallen down and the husk is remaining in your hand. Then what do? Then you throw that. Yeah. Except in Eugene where you make it into an edible cup or something, and then edible flatware, where you start eating the plate and spoon. Yeah. And Except in Eugene, what do you normally do? You throw that away and you go home and because you got what you want, you collect the grain. But imagine a fellow, after thrashing, continues to thrash the husk. Yeah. Yeah, Tusha is the husk and you Kandanam is the thrashing. So you continue to thrash the husk. What for? What will you get out of thrashing the husk? Nothing. What will you get out of developing Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Uparati, Shraddha, Samadhanam, Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam, Jignasutvam? What will you get out of that if there is no bhakti? Bhakti is the grain. It has departed, and then here you are taking the husk, and then you're just, what will you get out of it? You will get exhausted. And the already hopeless jiva, with a little flicker of hope, came to Vedanta, goes away with the conclusion, what? Vedanta doesn't work, there is no magic, there is nothing to jumpstart my life. You jumpstart your love first. Yeah, that's what it is. A loveless Vedanta is like a loveless life. And if love is bhakti, it had better be revived. Through the love for Vedanta, Vedanta is all about Ishvara, through the love for Ishvara. That is Paraprema Swarupa Bhaktihi. So beautiful. So, Vritha Pishtasya Peshanam, Adi Shankara says, grinding the flour. You know, not grinding the grain, grinding the flour. You take the flour and put it in the mortar and you keep grinding. What are you going to get? Other than sweat, blood and tears. Nothing you are going to get. It's a useless, vritha, useless. If bhakti is missing, then it is a useless exercise to gain the qualifications for Vedanta. Sarva sadhana sampatti, you know, asti, we have seen the same thing, Tusha Kandanavad, Vritha. Vritha means useless. And because it is useless, that means what? Therefore, I will stop pursuing Shamadama because it's useless. I'll only go to temple and sit. I'll only sit in the temple. There are people like that. Because, you know, without Bhagavan everything is useless. So I'll just go sit in front of Bhagavan all day. Bhagavan says, I'm tired of looking at you. Go. Yeah, that is called Ativrishti, you know. And Avrishti and Ativrishti. Ativrishti means too much rain. And then Avrishti, no rain. So somewhere in the middle. Can't you be in the middle? No, very difficult. This is what the whole thing is. It's not either or. The two are the pillars. I told you, Shraddha and Bhakti are the pillars for Vedanta to work. So Vedanta will not work without Bhakti. Bhakti will not work without Vedanta. I told you there was already this catch-22. If you want to be a good Bhakta, you better have Vedanta. So Bhakti is how to fall in love with love for Bhagavan. That's what it is. How to permanently be in love. Imagine a person in love, you know, they don't see anything wrong, they don't see anything bad, they are not interested in all the day-to-day, you know, the samsara doesn't touch them, they are walking in the cloud. That's what a bhakta is. In the first instance, the one who is falling in love, permanent, you know, is impermanent. Here, this is a permanent because it is directed towards the infinite being none other than yourself. Bhakti is the highest aspect, the ultimate aspect of self-love, the ultimate manifestation of self-love, bhakti. And since that is very difficult to understand, you put in a proxy, like that child with a broken doll, you put a proxy there and you fall in love with that. You learn to relate to that. And learning to relate to that, Vedanta starts to talk because Vedanta is unfolding the meaning of that. And then Bhakti becomes even more stronger. And then if I say I only want Vedanta, Bhakti becomes a vehicle for the study of Vedanta. Either way you look at it, you cannot escape Bhakti. Bhakti becomes all pervading, all powerful, without which there is nothing possible. So you cannot say I'm tearing up the list because I don't need this list. The list is needed, and the list is being made on the paper of bhakti. That is what is the difference. So revive the bhakti, Vedanta will come back to life. If you are feeling like this is not working for me, that is not the correct conclusion. We give our mind a lot of power, and we therefore enshrine wrong thoughts in our mind and say, oh, this is not working. And some people say like this also, I'm not that interested in Vedanta. That means something is wrong. That means this is an expression of pain, disconnection, sorrow and hopelessness to say that. If you say I'm not interested in Vedanta, what you're saying is I'm not interested in the infinite, in the truth of myself. Yeah, I'm not interested. That cannot be. Because that self is really lovable, and in fact whatever you are interested in is the self. If you say I'm not interested in Vedanta, but I'm interested in how, how this my company is working, that means that company that you are keeping right now in your company, that is alone, that is really the truth of the self. This is not understood. Whatever you are interested in is you. And that is what bhakti helps you to see and reveals. And so without bhakti, Tata Vedanta. And more we shall see when? Next class?
9 to 10.
10th and 11th, yeah. 10th. Yeah, 10th we will meet again. 9th will be Mundakopanishad. And so we will see more of this very beautiful section, and we'll do more of that. I will say the closing prayer and we'll stop if the people have any questions. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Any questions? If there are any questions, you can ask. Nice to see Andrew. Very nice. Namaste to everyone. Any questions? Oh, you're not just stretching. Okay.
No one's stretching and asking me questions. So I'm one of those Westerners that was raised with the, not the shrines and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't ever feel like I was particularly missing anything, but
Yeah.
it didn't seem tangible, I have to admit that. But it wasn't until I had my first daughter that first time I saw her, I went, oh my God, there's the face of God. So for me, it's always felt like my children
Yeah.
are my shrine.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
And so, but I could do that with all kinds of things.
And that is the next step.
Yeah.
That is it's wonderful that your children are Bhagavan to you. That's what Mother Yashoda did. She saw her child and she also said, oh, this is the face of God. She also said that. So you are in correct company. It's wonderful. It's very nice. That's how every, you say, oh, I was not raised in India, but that's for every woman, her child is Bhagavan.
Yeah.
Yeah, her child is the face of Bhagavan. You ask any Indian woman. That is how it is. And, that is very laudable and it's wonderful. It has served you well. And now you are ready to graduate and to see first other children as Bhagavan.
Yeah.
And then to see other people as Bhagavan, and then you start with small, small furry things. Those are, it's easy, yeah, that have unconditional love. Those are Bhagavan. Then the trees, they can't harm you, and that is Bhagavan. So like that you start seeing and you start relating as though they are Bhagavan, and your duty towards them is duty towards Bhagavan. Whatever you need to do is duty towards Bhagavan. That is how. So it's everybody. That's a very wonderful way to look at life. And then now you're ready to go a little further. Same principle. You just broaden and expand.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I sort of felt like because my daughters, one's in California, one's in New York, I think for me it was designed that way on purpose so that I would broaden my quote love from
Yeah.
coast to coast.
Right? There you go, coast to coast. Very beautifully put, and all things in between.
In between.
Yeah.
So Amiji, Amma wanted to know what the pots are for. And the
What pots?
The pots.
Oh.
So Swamiji will
Yeah. These are teaching pots. This one has a lot of complexes. I am small, I am not all, and it is called crackpot because it has been dropped many times and then repaired. Okay, so that is like all of us, correct? And then that this one is big ahankara pot. Makes fun of this one. I can swallow you almost. And what are you? And then you I'm bigger than you. You were a small little nobody. Look at me. This is like some of us. And then finally you have the big bada pot. Bada pot with a bada ahankara, nice shape, and what is it called? Perfect pot. Perfect pot complex. Correct? Also a teaching pot, but a perfect, illustrating the perfect pot complex. And who says, what do you mean you almost swallow? I can completely swallow you, swaha, and I can almost swallow you, aha. And then, so you rest on me, all of you. I am bigger and I'm east or west, I'm the biggest, I'm the best. And then what? All these pots go to Vedanta class, correct? And then sit in front of a guru pot or a pot-bellied guru, whichever you want to see. And then they are told, you are not pot at all. What are you? Clay. The top of you is clay. The weight of you is clay. The smell of you is clay. Color of you is clay. And you are just clay, not little clay, big clay. You are clay which is impartite and whole, and then that is what you are. So the pots go away in peace and they are able to enjoy their potness because now they know they are clay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is what these pots are used for. और क्या? Any other questions? Okay. See you all soon.